how do you keep them there and how do you value them as a consumer? That's what we're missing. And that's what I hope that brands, whether it's my favorite champagne brand, my favorite liquor brand, really kind of speak to their core consumer and bring new consumers in and keep them there a long time. So that's my hot take. Everyone can say it's economy or different things like that, but we've lived through a lot of recessions since you and I graduated college, and we've lived through a lot of times. But if you don't bring consumers in and speak to them, you're going to lose them to something else. There's no brand loyalty. There's no category loyalty. You have to continue speaking to your consumer or you're going to lose them to who knows what.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dig In podcast. Today is a special treat for me because I'm joined by someone I've known almost like my whole life, basically. So I'm joined today by Katie Curler. She is National Account Manager for Campari Group. And it is so hard for me to use your married name because I know you as Katie Hunt. But welcome to the podcast, Katie.
Thank you. I said your name 4 different times today of Jessica Greving. So I think you continue to know someone as how you met them. And we met as 4th graders. So that is how I know you. I may not be the only guest you've ever had in CPG, obviously, or from the alcohol space, or even from Cal Poly, where we both went to the same college, but possibly Novato High School or Linwood Elementary School. I would hope that I am your first guest of that stature to come on. So
You are. And what an honor it is, right? Yeah,
yes,
thank you.
what an
Truly.
honor.
Yeah, thank you. And look how far we've come. So we're going to start with an impromptu question. You've not seen this one coming, but this is just a good way to get us going. What's a trend that you're very glad that you skipped?
Oh, going back to mom jeans. So I have nieces in college and you have a daughter that's in high school, that are going back to this trend where they're going to the not necessarily high-waisted, but the big, bulky jeans. And I am glad that I did not get back into that trend. 1, I'm 6 foot tall, doesn't really look all that good. And 2, try to tell my nieces you have your whole life to cover up stuff. And not that I'm encouraging them to wear scandalous things, but it's not a great trend. What trend are you happy that you've skipped?
Well, the trend that I am so glad is back, though, I've been waiting for this moment, is denim on denim because I think it should have never gone away. And I welcome it back.
I think you've spent too much time in Canada then. You're going for full Canadian tuxedo, or are you?
Yes, any of it. Any denim on whatever denim, as many denims as you like. We're going to dig in. But let's first, Katie, I'd love for you to give a quick introduction of yourself and a little bit about your role today.
I got into the alcohol business right after college. So a friend of my sister's was starting a company and I went to go work for them, and it was called Black Box Wines. My first real job outside of working for a baseball team was a high-end wine in a box, and everyone laughed. Everyone made fun of it, but I was 22 at the time. We grew up in wine country, but not really wine country, but close enough. And I started my career in alcohol by selling wine out of the back of my car. What people didn't know was how Europe and Australia and all over the world, boxed wine wasn't a low-end item. Boxed wine was a very good economical, environmental choice. And so that was my first job. When Constellation bought Black Box Wines, it's now owned by Gallo, but when Constellation bought Black Box Wines, they're like, what is this 23-year-old doing? She has no experience. And so they were kind and fortunate enough to kind of get me into what was Wine Warehouse, but I just for technical purposes to say the Gallo system. And I worked at a Gallo wholesaler, and then I went to go work for Heineken running on-premise in San Francisco, and then went back to Constellation where I spent a lot of my career, almost 12 years, and where I fell in love with national accounts. That is where I've been ever since. And I truly love national accounts because it gets to blend the beauty of data and insights, which we're going to talk about, with also truly getting to create some fun things around programming and creativity and whatnot. So I was at Constellation for a long time, but in the last year and a half, I've come back to a large corporation, Campari Group, Campari Brands, where I am the national account manager over Total Wine and Target. And Total Wine being our largest account and one of the largest in the US, it's been a really fun transition of spending the first 20 some years of my career mostly selling wine to now really transitioning to the spirits world and kind of learned something new. I don't want to say in the back half of my life, but we are
No,
not young anymore. But it's been really fun to do something different without kind of completely stepping out of the alcohol space. So that is me in a nutshell.
very cool. Well, we're going to talk about some of the brands in the portfolio because it is such a rich set of long heritage brands. And those are two kind of important retailers. So I'm excited to dig into that. And so the first part of our conversation is going to be, telling us a story because our listeners get inspiration from hearing from other leaders. And one of the things that actually sparked me reaching out to you to talk about being on the podcast is some of the really compelling campaigns that Campari puts out there. And so you're going to talk about some of those campaigns. What I'd love for you to do is kind of go back to the beginning and pull up the curtain a little bit on what happens at the start of these campaigns. What are some of the originations of the insights of what we end up seeing in market?
So we'll start with the first one, which was Wild Turkey. So historic brand, and Wild Turkey's been around hundreds of years, and where it's had different owners along the way. And Campari really values the authenticity of the brand and where the campaign came from. And the campaign is Don't Change a Damn Thing. And it's honoring the heritage of Wild Turkey. We have the longest running master distiller in the world, Jimmy Russell. Jimmy Russell is turning 91 this year. And we are really wanting to honor that campaign, but also take Wild Turkey into the next step of the evolution of there's a lot of bourbons in the world. There's a lot of talk about whiskey. There's a lot of talk about the decline of whiskey in the category and how do you differentiate yourself amongst a sea of brands. And so that's where a lot of the work starts in terms of insights from our marketing team, insights from our sales team, insights from our finance team. Everyone has their own kind of insights team within Campari that come together to say, this is where data meets creativity. And then it ends up on my plate. And how do we bring that to life at retail? And that's what I really love about it's not just marketing going off on their own and saying, we want to talk about this. And it's not just the insights team saying, we want to go about this. And then the buzzkill of everything being finance saying, no, you can't do either of those things. You have to just stay the course and whatnot. So that's where I love merging a campaign from marketing and merging necessarily kind of what the sales team wants to do. That's where I get to be really creative with my job. So the campaign being Don't Change a Damn Thing. How do you bring that to life? That's a marketing slogan. That's what I think a lot of brands struggle with from the sales perspective, not from the marketing or whatnot. There are beautiful brands out there. All the data goes into this is our core consumer. But how do you bring that to life at shelf? And how do you bring that to life in display? And so that's where I get to be super creative and work with my team on, well, we're going to work on what does Don't Change a Damn Thing mean? It means that we're going to highlight the quality of Wild Turkey, but we're also going to have some fun around fantasy football. And we're going to say, this is how I'm bringing it to life. As Jessica is a huge football fan, that is something we also share in common, that every August, everyone who plays fantasy football gets together with their team, does a draft, does competitions. And some of these traditions have gone on 20 years when you used to do a live draft. Wasn't always online. It wasn't always, friends in Europe. It was, you had to kind of do it with your home crew. And so that's where it's don't change a damn thing. It works for you. It's fun. And then how do we translate it to a cocktail? You don't need to change a thing when you really love a cocktail. You don't really need to change a recipe if the recipe works for you. So while we're trying to, one, bring in new consumers to Wild Turkey, because Wild Turkey as a brand has the nerdy bourbon drinker that knows every aspect of the grain of the day of the rick house to the person that just loves a casual bourbon might know what Wild Turkey is. How do you get them to pick your brand up off the shelf? It's by incorporating kind of right time, right space, right campaign all at once on the floor and working with a good partner. So that's one of our first campaigns that we're doing with this kind of marketing slogan. And then we'll see how it goes as we go into fantasy football season and different things like that. But how do we incorporate cocktails onto the floor? So that's what we're doing with Total Wine. And it's been really fun to see it progress. We brought in Bruce Russell, who's the third generation master distiller within Wild Turkey, to talk about his favorite cocktails. And it's not just bourbon on the rocks. It's not just old fashioned. That's where the evolution comes of it's a paper plane now. It's a whiskey and Coke. It's all the different things that people want to do. So
Yeah. Sounds like it brings in so many facets because you've got the like a heritage, especially if you've got multiple generations that are sort of joining the story. So you've got that part dialed. You've got the almost like ritual thing with fantasy football and things like that. You're tying it to actual cocktails. What's the physicality in store? How's that some of the ways that it shows up to like the shopper?
Really, it comes to life with Total Wine in terms of how they display. Each retailer has their own way of going to market. Some of it's a just on the shelf, some of it's in their e-commerce platform, but Total Wine, this is where I get to be super fun. They kind of get to be the best of all things because they're not worried about selling stereo equipment. That sounds really old and boomerish, but or clothing or things like that. They are just the world's largest cocktail store and the world's largest liquor store. So this is what they're set up to do. So within that, then we get to go a level deeper of what is going to speak to their consumer and what's going to hit you when you walk right in the door. And it's a huge display, which they call wow, because they want it to be creative and they want it to be eye catching and they want it to be all of the things that maybe a clean store policy isn't, but are still clean store things where it's very buttoned up. It's very beautiful, but it's also kitschy and fun. And it's a big football. And it's all the different things that are going into while we were doing it in January during football playoffs, and then how we'll transition it to kind of August timeframe of fantasy football draft and getting ready for the football season.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. So that's just the wild turkey example. You also are involved in a little bit of this spritz frenzy that's happening. All
Just a
right.
little bit. So Campari's strategy globally is win the first share drink. And what does that mean at retail? That doesn't mean anything to a retailer. That doesn't mean anything to a consumer or a guest that walks into Target. But what it does mean for a sales staff is how do we get the first drink? And we've never been in a more competitive space of share of mind, share of wallet, share of stomach, all of these things that over the course of our very illustrious career, but it's harder than ever to be different because the alcohol category is declining. People are declining shopping overall or impulse purchases. So you really have to be on your A game to win that first drink. And luckily for Campari brands, we have a mix of, even though they're liqueurs, they're lower proof. And a spritz is the perfect drink of how do you enjoy happy hour? What is the aperitif lifestyle? It's talking about the day with your friends. It's a low proof drink that you're not going to fall asleep after two of them. You still can have dinner. That's what we want to own with winning the first drink. And with that, this is the most exciting campaign that I've gotten to work on in a while is bringing it to life at Target. In the almost 20 years I've worked with Target, people still don't realize that they sell alcohol because a lot of states don't and they don't have full liquor distribution. But what they do know is their consumer. Their consumer is female, educated, multiracial. Some have families, some don't, but they really know their consumer and they really know their consumer loves an end cap. That's why Easter is so big. That's why back to school is so big. So how do you make an impact with liquor? Well, let's create a spritz campaign and let's show all of the different things that they're seeing out in restaurants and whatnot. And they can make it at home. They can make it with their girlfriends. They can make it by the pool or for a soccer game or a picnic. And that's what we developed with them is how to teach their consumers to make their own spritzes at home. And we incorporated working with Bacardi, who owns Saint Germain, because there's the Hugo Spritz, there's the Aperol Spritz, there's Campari Spritz, and a Limoncello Spritz. And so we created a campaign with them that had 4 different shelves of all different spritzes they could make and really taught the consumer it's not as hard as you think. It's Prosecco, it's a liqueur, it's club soda, it's a garnish. It's not hard, but it can be screwed up pretty easily if you don't do it right. So let's teach the consumer how to do it. Let's make it pop. Let's make it Target. That was this past summer, and we're repeating it this summer. It drove a whole market share point for Target that they gained a share point over last summer. So that's where the best of everything kind of comes together, where you have the data that says this is our consumer. You have the marketing that this is a hot topic of spritz. People have been watching Emily in Paris. People have been watching White Lotus. It's kind of out in the universe how fun Italy is. And how do you bring it to a Target in Nebraska, the middle of the country? How can I can't get to Italy this summer. How can I bring a piece of that life to me? And Target capitalized on that, and they're going to capitalize it. Spoil alert, you're going to see it again in Target this summer. They're going to take it a step further and have some of the new RTs that aren't necessary, that aren't my brands by any means, but they're going to have some ready to drink spritzes on the end cap. And then we're already working towards 2027 of what does a tequila spritz look like? What does a whiskey spritz look like? The evolution of the spritz is not going to go away. And it's so fun to watch something that came as an idea, then that has the data to support it. And then you take the creativity and you bring it to life on shelf. That's hopefully every data nerd like you's dream when you see the
Yeah.
data come to life at shelf. And that's where, as a salesperson, wow, it wasn't just the creativity, it was the data that supported it, that we know the right customer, we know the right time, we know the right price point, and we know that they can accomplish this at home. So
Yeah.
that's what we're really excited at Campari to talk about.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, it's long live the spritz for sure. But I love just one phrase you used. You said, Target knows their guest and they love an end cap. And I just am like, duh, this makes so much sense. I mean, I myself shop Target and I stop at all those, especially the seasonals. And what a great way to like personify the data and the insights that you mentioned in a way that really connects to that shopper experience. So I can't wait to see. It's like off the chain, the spritz situation. I don't
It
even know.
is. It's funny because a lot of it can't come to life at every retailer. And I've worked with 7-Eleven for a long time. That's not the right consumer. That consumer is walking in, they need an RTD, they need a six pack, they need something that they can grab and go. Whereas Target, the joy of Target shopping for a lot of their guests is wandering around and finding out, oh, I didn't know I needed that. Whereas similar to a Trader Joe's and different things like that, where it's like, oh, surprise and delight. I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know I could make a spritz at home. So that's where we really hone in on using the data that we have, that this is the right core consumer, and the data that every retailer should know about their own consumer, and kind of merge them together. Because while the Target Spritz campaign could work at Total Wine, they don't have the true end cap to say someone's shopping by while they're going to pick up candy and whatnot and surprise and delight. Someone's walking into Total Wine knowing that they want to make a
Right.
spritz. Or at a grocery store, hey, it kind of works, but it doesn't. And this is our core consumer that's shopping at Kroger versus Target. So I
Mhm.
think that's where sales has come a long way, of really knowing your customer, me knowing my customers, and what I can bring them from my portfolio that's going to make sense for them. But also them knowing their own core consumer of, yeah, it's like we over index on this at Target. Please don't bring us something that's not going to work for us.
Right.
Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, it has to be a fit for sure. Well, is there another takeaway you want to leave us with on the story of these campaigns at Campari? Because I'm sure you could unpack dozens of them.
I could
Just
talk
tell
about
us.
them all day long. I think it's more, I nervous being on your podcast because I watch you bring on these amazing marketers and amazing insights people. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much the sales people truly love data. And at the end of the day, you have to have the right data. Well, it's not just data that sells something, because otherwise I would be out of a job. It is how you merge it and how you interpret it to your retailer and how you package it up. So I think it's going to be fun to see this come to life, a few of our campaigns over the next few months, and how we're incorporating them into the store and trying to gain, again, that share of wallet, share of mind, share of stomach that we're all fighting for. It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out.
Yeah, well, I love how much data and insights informed that. Of course, that's the side I see. So now we're going to turn to the commercial side of things, because you and I have been in sales, different types of sales, but sales nonetheless for a number of years. And some things about our discipline have changed and some have just not. So I would just love for you to provide a little bit of a rant on this topic, because it's a hot topic in our worlds right now.
It is a hot topic because I had someone with the audacity to say, what do salespeople do? Why can't it just be AI? And I laughed at her and said, if I just trusted AI, I would probably not be where I am in the last year or whatnot, of people relying too much on it. And so I would say two things. One, at the end of the day, sales has not changed at its core, that the things that are valuable are follow up, follow through, over deliver for what you're going to do, and really listen to your customer. And whether that's, for me, my customer is the buyer at Total Wine and Target, and also listen to your end consumer of, hey, the person that's walking into Total Wine and Target. But truly, what's important to my customer and my buyers of, have I delivered the things that they need on time? Have I followed through? Have I brought them the new and exciting things? Just basics. None of that changes in sales. And none of that, I feel like, has changed over 20 years of really being a customer service oriented mindset and a servant leader orient mindset of like putting your customer first. So I don't think that's changed. And I don't think that can change ever, is what you bring to the table as a salesperson. What I do feel like has changed is it's not just a handshake and a golf deal and things like that. That part I'm glad it has changed, and we have evolved over the years of really using data, really using knowledge that this is going to sell through instead of just a one-time sale or feeling like people are giving them used car sales vibes by any means. I think the evolution of a salesperson has changed a lot. They're way more competent when it comes to talking about data, talking about ROI, and talking about what that will lead to instead of just, hey, buddy, let's go out on the golf course and talk about some whiskey that we want to sell. So I think that part's changed. And I feel like it's a great change that we're more educated, we're more equipped, we're ready to go. And we're holding it to a higher standard of just not a pretty presentation. And quite frankly, when I started, we didn't even have PowerPoint for sales presentation. So
Yeah.
to see this come full circle in our life is like pretty amazing. What do you feel like has changed for you?
Well, it's interesting. Even the term sales or the word sales can have a negative connotation in a lot of different circles. And I just go back to my first mentor, Norm. Norm would define sales is understanding the buyer's needs and empathetically aligning your products or services to meet their needs. That's it. Does it come with a financial transaction? Sure. Does it often come with some form of negotiation? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding your customers or your clients' need and meeting them where they are. And that I think has not changed, especially in, I'm in more of a service type of industry. And so there it's even more important to understand the need. What has changed, I think, is exactly what you're saying, is that the best salespeople are going to be obsessed with the client's need and then can become so much smarter in how to meet that need because of advances in technology. So even just this week, our team launched a tool where we can more efficiently tap into the earnings reports and the public information that's available, the news releases about different brands within that client's portfolio. So we can come to that next engagement that much more educated. And so that's where I love to see the job change and evolve and get, we're smarter. At the end of the day, we're still people. I think clients want to buy from people that they enjoy working with, and that part will not change, at least for many industries.
What is the life of a salesperson?
Mm.
And you think of someone that's been in sales 20 years, and I've had different points of my career of managing a team, managing a large team, managing whatnot. And now I'm back to being an individual contributor. And there is nothing I have actually loved more, because where I thrive and what I do is that client facing relationship. There are people who are great coaches and who are great mentors, and you and I have had both of them along the way, who they get their joy from coaching and developing people. And that has always been that's the best thing. Well, sometimes it's not.
I know.
And my like personal rant after going through getting my master's degree during COVID, because what else are you going to do when you're at home? I went and got back and got my master's in organizational leadership. And I am so glad that I did at that point in my career, because it has opened my eyes to something that I really want to bring to the table for all salespeople, as if I'm influencing the world, but just the
Sure.
conversation of you can be a leader without being a manager. And there are a lot of things that managers are good at in terms of making sure your goals are in correctly, making sure that your expenses are done on time, and making sure that you're doing all the things that help the company get to where they are. But leadership can take a lot of different forms. And that's where I think a lot of salespeople get stuck that, oh, I'm supposed to move up and be a manager and manage a sales team. There's plenty of other ways to lead, and there's plenty of other ways to grow as salespeople without having to manage people. And
Yeah.
as the economy turns, and as there may not be room to grow in an organization where it's managing 10 people or managing 20 people or being head of sales, there's only so many heads of sales in the world for however many companies. So how can you still be a leader without necessarily being a manager of a team? And that's what I've really loved over the past 5 or 6 years, is it's given me an opportunity to say, this is the style of leadership I have, very servant based, very service oriented. And how can I grow and lead in that way versus just managing a team, and what I can do that way. So I feel like that's the other evolution of sales, whether it's in tech or CPG or things like that, is honoring the skills that people have and developing them into opportunities that can grow the whole company. I know my manager would love to have a team of top tier individual performers who don't necessarily want to be managers of people, because then you get to be the head of the Warriors when you've got Clay, you've got Steph Curry, you've got all these things. Like, the best example I can give is you get to be Bill Walsh with a really good
Yeah.
team and just guide them. And
Yeah.
that's what I think I wish more companies would honor in their sales team, instead of just valuing people moving up as, well, you're a people manager and now you're a manager of a division and all that stuff. So that's my rant of sales, of how it hopefully has changed in this new world.
Yeah. Well, and I think in sales and commercial roles, there's what I tell people all the time when they're saying, well, what's next for me? It's like, in sales, you can create your next job if you just crush it. If you crush it, then you say, guess what? I'd like to go open up that next region, or I'd like to go open up this next division. You can create your own next role because you're providing that commercial result and impact to the company. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think it goes true for so many different functions across the organization, that we need to think less hierarchy and more impact. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a fabulous rant. What's your hot take on the future of the beverage alcohol industry?
Ooh, this could be a whole different podcast, but my hot take is that it needs to be level set. Let's think to the wine boom. This is the best example I can give. Is the evolution of a young female wine drinker was a Boone's Farm or a wine cooler in college. We're going to say legal drinking age. And then you moved into, oh, I'm going to try this wine, or I'm going to try this wine. And you started from kind of the sweeter palate of Riesling, and then you went to kind of a Chardonnay or a Pinot Grigio, and then you're in a Sauvignon Blanc. And then, as we talked about you being a foodie, then you've kind of come back to Riesling, that Riesling is the ultimate food wine because it pairs with so many things. So you have that bookend of a drinker. The wine industry has lost that entry point of the young Spritz drinker into bringing them into the fold of wine. Cocktail is in a evolution revolution too, of, is it a low proof? Is it a no proof? Is it a whatever? And how do you bring them in and keep them there at every stage of their age? So the best example I can give for Campari of that is, you bring someone in that's trying an Aperol Spritz while they're studying abroad, my 22-year-old niece. And then she comes back and she really enjoys an Aperol Spritz. She learns the Spritz category. But how do you keep her as an Aperol drinker, and how do you keep her in there? You create more ways to use the product and enjoy the product. So as her taste buds evolve, hopefully she'll try a paper plane. Hopefully she'll try a different, like, margarita or something along the way to keep them interested. I feel like the alcohol industry has taken all of those things for granted for the last 10 years of, like, booming, 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 and never did any of the work to keep them there. And
Yeah.
so we've lost people to GLP-1s. We've lost people to recession or prices going too high. How do you keep them there, and how do you value them as a consumer? That's what we're missing. And that's what I hope that brands, whether it's my favorite champagne brand, my favorite liquor brand, really kind of speak to their core consumer and bring new consumers in and keep them there a long time. So
Yeah.
that's my hot take. Everyone can say it's economy or different things like that, but we've lived through a lot of recessions since you and I graduated college, and we've lived through a lot of times. But if you don't bring consumers in and speak to them, you're going to lose them to something else. There's no brand loyalty. There's no category loyalty. You have to continue speaking to your consumer, or you're going to lose them to who knows what. So
Yeah, that is a brilliant hot take. I agree with all of it. We're going to move to the final dig. So, this is all about you as a consumer, Katie. So, feel free to take off your professional hat and just answer just authentically without a portfolio in mind. What's the last product or service you bought on impulse?
well, it was for a party that I'm planning. I bought labels to make my own wine replicating Schitt's Creek for this party. I'm going to go create fruit wine and put it on some nice champagne. So I bought some fun labels to put over some wine labels.
Very nice. God, this party sounds amazing. You're going to have to send me some pictures. What's a category or a brand that you could rationalize any price point for? You just have to keep it in your life.
Champagne.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I go on record as saying, like, I live for champagne, and that starts from a good domestic California sparkling brand all the way up to spending a few $100s a bottle on some lovely French bubbles too.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I still am dying of embarrassment that I couldn't get the saber to work that time that I went to your house, and I was very embarrassed. And I couldn't do it in the past either. My past company, they love to savor a champagne bottle. I just never got it down, Katie. I'm very embarrassed
I
about it.
think you are so type A and so wonderful that you want to get it right the first time instead of just enjoying the moment of
Yeah.
I'm going to be with Katie's husband who loves to teach people how to savor champagne and just enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
You are a perfectionist to the core, and that's what makes you wonderful. And that's you're in your head too much. So I think you're going to have to
Yeah.
come back out and we're going to have to do it again.
Yes. And I will just be present in the moment. Okay. That's good advice. Brands have distinct personalities. What's a brand that you would date and a brand that you would marry? And it's up to you. They can be the same or different brand.
Whew. I am married and I am in a lifelong partnership with Diet Coke.
Mhm.
And I know there's other things, and I know that people can say it's bad for you, but I am in a very committed relationship with Diet Coke. And
Mhm.
that cannot change. I don't like the regular Coke. I don't like Pepsi. I don't like Diet Coke is it for me. That
That's it.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's your soulmate, your life mate.
It is.
Okay.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any beverages that you just kinda date here and there and you just kinda find a little flirty with?
Ginger ale I love as a sweet treat,
Mm.
and I'm not loyal to any brand within ginger ale because sometimes United Airlines has one and sometimes the grocery store is another. So I feel like that's something that's like, as long as it's not healthy ginger ale, I'm totally fine with that. And then I think I'm very particular. I'm the only thing that I'm really particular about is the peanut butter in my house. And
Ah,
I say that as there's not a lot of brand loyalty, but when Kevin and I started dating, I had to ask him what peanut butter brand he was because
right.
I am a Jif Crunchy. And if he was a Skippy Creamy, I don't think our marriage would have worked if like we had to have two peanut butters in the house.
Okay, no, I'm gonna challenge you on that. You could just have 2 different peanut butters because you guys don't have to eat the same sandwich, right?
I
You could
know, but it's there's very few that I find that as like a CPG nerd, and I make my husband go to grocery stores when we travel out of the country. I love consumer products, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I could do anything else. We have girlfriends that sell tech. We have like friends that do other things. I don't think I could be as passionate about selling cloud-based materials or cars as I am truly about consumer products. I I'm not loyal, I've had to change dog foods because, a dog develops an allergy or something like that. I've had to change a lot of things over my life, but like Diet Coke and Jif peanut butter,
Yeah,
something about that is really to my core
yeah,
of
I
like
can feel it.
those are
The yeah,
I would be sad if those two things went out of business. Everything
yeah,
else I feel like
you
is
could shop
pretty
around.
negotiable for
Okay.
me.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I know that those brands, I'm sure, appreciate your loyalty. Who's an industry leader that you think I should bring on this podcast?
One of my favorite bosses, Claire Keys, she had long career at Miller, Heineken, and she was at St. Michel with me. And she left St. Michel and got an opportunity to go work at Lego. And talk about, I think it's fun to sell Aperol because everyone loves it. I actually think Lego is the funnest job I've heard.
Yeah. No, that's a good combination. So, okay, good. Well, I'd love to be connected with her. So, as we wrap things up, I would love to hear from you. What keeps you inspired at work?
Just seeing something come to life, I get really excited when something that I've gotten to work on with a team of whether it's a wow display or an end cap or different things like that. I'm not in the brand creation team, but where I get to be creative and kind of fill that void of creativity in my life is really creating things that work for my retailer. And so I think that puzzle of trying to figure out how we can bring something to life and win the retail space, win the next drink, win the next program. That's what keeps me motivated. And that's what keeps me getting up every day of really trying to be creative in that sense of like how to solve a puzzle and how to bring value to my customers. And then honestly, I love my customers. We're friends. Like I've gone to buyers' weddings before, I've traveled with them. And I think the connection that you get with not only the people that you have to call on as a customer, but really knowing them makes you a good salesperson too. And so I love to celebrate when they have a baby. I love to celebrate when their kid gets into college and they feel like they're part of my life and I'm part of their life. And that's since we spend so much time at work, that's what really gets me going, is that being able to have those connections.
Well, that's why you continue to be such a powerful salesperson, commercial leader. So that is a great way to wrap it up. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today, share your wisdom, share your energy, and it's just good to see you, friend. So thank
It
you.
is good to see you, and I hope that we can continue. It's sad that we had to book a podcast just to be able to hang out, but we will get to that point again of celebrating 49er victories, celebrating wine victories, and
Mm.
also just kind of celebrating how awesome our friendship has been over almost 40 years.
No, insane,
We're
insane. Yep,
young. We are
we are.
still young and hip.
Yep. Haven't aged a day. Absolutely. Well, cheers to you. Thank you.
Like what you heard? Share the inspiration or head to diginsights.com to learn more about what we do.